Hello and welcome to MLB This Week. It's the MLB This Week Show. Well, Ruben Amaro is fired from the Phillies. Tulowitzki injures his shoulder, and David Ortiz hits number 500. All this and more on This Week, MLB This Week. And hello and welcome to the MLB This Week Show. My name is Rich.
And I'm Gary.
And hello, Gary. We're finally back here. We took Labor Day holiday weekend off here. And as we were saying before the show, I feel like we've been off for a month already.
Yeah, it almost seems that way. And but the baseball world keeps rolling along here, and we're really getting close now, Rich.
Yes, we are. Only, about 2.5 weeks left in the regular season. And all of a sudden, we're starting to glance over at the wild card positions that exist, and all of a sudden it's taking on a new meaning for baseball fans.
It certainly is. It looked a few weeks ago like everything was settled and things were who was gonna be in it, but now we're getting a complete new picture. The Cardinals have struggled in the Central, and the Buccos are making a run at them for the division, as well as the Cubs, and of course they're in the wild card picture as well if they don't take care of the Cardinals. But the American League is really where a lot of the action is right now, between the wild card and the AL East and the AL West. There's a couple of great races going on there, Rich.
Yeah, the Yankees right now sitting in a good spot, as well as the Texas Rangers, but right behind them for the wild cards, a log jam of the Twins. The Angels are making a late charge, and even kind of a late charge from the Cleveland Indians, even though they're 70-70. They're 4 games out of the wild card, so I guess you can't discount them yet.
And, the Yankees are not in good shape. I mean, their pitching staff has been not good, and they've had some injuries, and now Teixeira is out. So they are in a dogfight there, and Texas has been playing well, and they could actually catch the Yankees. And boy, if they get the wild card game at home, that would be something. And Minnesota's right in it too. So fascinating stuff. And Toronto seems to have weathered the storm. They took 3 out of 4 against the Yankees, and Houston is hanging in by a thread, Rich.
Yeah, and it seems like only a couple weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, that they had a huge lead out there in the AL West, and all of a sudden they've become human a little bit and lost some games along the way. Maybe they're out of gas, Gary.
It's possible. They got a lot of young guys. They're not used to playing these long seasons. The only thing is, what they can be happy about now is that they are in first place. They've got a 1.5 lead over Texas, and now hopefully it gets a little cooler now. September, the weather cools down. The races heat up, but the weather gets cool, and a lot of former players will tell you that you get a second win at this point when the weather cools a little bit. So that could help Houston. Like you say, though, Rich, they could be gassed. They could. They have a lot of young guys, and you never know what that's going to do down the stretch.
That's for sure. And this afternoon, I was at a ball game. The Phillies happened to beat the Chicago Cubs. My first ever instant replay experience there in Philadelphia this afternoon, Gary. And I'll tell you, it was a boring affair. It was about a 6-minute stop in the game. It seemed like the decision was never going to come. And I'll tell you, it was just a strange time. It was the first time I've ever experienced it live at the stadium. And I even think they got the call wrong in the end. So instant replay. It's going to be interesting this playoff season, and just I'm not very impressed with it, especially after today.
Well, the Mets had a couple today, and they won one of their challenges, and I have to talk a little bit about the Mets only because that they have stormed ahead 9.5 games in front of Washington. It's just amazing, Rich. We're shocked. And this is a team that was 11 and 12 games behind on the road, under 500. Now, with the win today in Atlanta, they are now at 500 on the road. So it's just an amazing. And the most amazing thing about this run is the job that Yoenis Cespedes has been doing. I mean, this guy seems to hit a home run every night in late games. It's just been an incredible run. I don't want to talk a lot about the Mets because people will say we're kind of National League Eastern Division oriented, you and I. But I think it's okay to say that Yoenis Cespedes is having a great month, 5 weeks or whatever, and it's just too bad that he couldn't get somehow. And I've seen some people actually talk about moving him into MVP talk, but don't think he would get it because it's only 5 weeks. But he's got, I think, 16 homers since he got to the Mets. Just 35 RBI, something along that. It's just been an incredible run.
Which is a lot, really. I mean, he's been clutch for the Mets. I don't think you can name too many other players that were acquired that's been so clutch for a team. And, even though you have your own Mets podcast, it's still a story that needs to be told. So Cespedes has been on fire. As you said, every night he's been coming through for the Mets just about.
Yeah, and it's really they pulled again. I hate to be bragging about the Mets, obviously, but they pulled off some of the best moves I've ever seen at a trade deadline. Getting Kelly Johnson, who's got some big hits, tying a game, winning a game for him. Juan Uribe won a game, got some big hits for him, and giving David Wright the chance to rest with his spinal stenosis. Tyler Clipper coming in the 8th inning and solidifying the bullpen more. And Yoenis Cespedes has just been unbelievable. And I really believe they have to try to pay him. And again, I think it could be a case where how much of the team would you like? What percentage of the team would you like? This is a guy that I would go 8 million. 8 years. I know he'd be 38 at the end, and everybody tells me I'm crazy, but you got to get him signed and pay him his money up front, and then he's got to agree to it, of course, but offer him a contract where his most money is up front, and then you pay it back. And he has said that he likes it here. He's very comfortable. He likes the idea that they have a young, good, very good pitching staff. He said in an interview that he's played at other places where they'd score 10 runs, but the pitching staff wasn't any good, and they'd give up 11. So he likes that. He likes the idea of the pitching staff. He likes it here in New York. I think if you're creative enough, I think they can sign him, but they have to start, coming up creatively and go to his agent now and start to talk. They did waive. He had a crazy contract where they would have had 5 days to sign him, and then they had to release him.
Mm-hmm.
And they have waived that so he can negotiate with the Mets just like any other team in the offseason. And that was a big move. Of course, it's a big move for him because he's doing so well. He can start a bidding war, if you will. But it also gives the Mets an opportunity that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So I think that, and I took it as another sign that he would like to stay here. So, but he has been red hot, and you got to say it.
I've got some words of caution for Met fans, though, and I'll have 2 words for you. Ryan Howard. Guy was on fire for a couple of years. He looked like he was going straight to the Hall of Fame. He got that big contract and he went south ever since. So I hope Mets management doesn't hand him the key to the city and their bank account, because I've seen it before.
Yes, but I think
winners will come through, but they'll let you down in the long run.
But I think the difference is with Ryan Howard is a big guy, and the injuries took their toll on him. And I think with Cespedes, he's a workout freak. He keeps in good shape and everything, and they say he's a businessman, so he knows he's got to keep that engine healthy and going, and he knows which side his bread is buttered on. But it is a good, it's a good tale of caution.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll have to see what happens in the off season. It'll be an interesting one, and we have to wait for the playoffs. Let's see what happens in that. Be right around the corner. And Gary, you have our first story up here. Thinking of some bad play all season.
Well, Rich, the first story I have is about somebody in your town, your general manager, Ruben Amaro, who is no longer your general manager. He was released from his responsibilities on Thursday. Assistant GM Scott Profrock was named interim GM, effective immediately. I don't think anybody was surprised that Amaro was left go at all. He took over a World Series caliber team. He kept it in the playoffs for 3 years, but then watched it deteriorate, and they lost 89 games each of the last 2 seasons, 81 and 81 in 2012. He's been in jeopardy for a couple of years, and it finally came. The writing was on the wall, and once they hired Andy MacPhail, you kind of figured that Ruben Amaro was going to be out, and the announcement finally came down this Thursday that he is out as the GM. And what is the feeling in Philly about that, Rich?
Well, a little history on Ruben Amaro Jr. He actually was a player for the Phillies many years ago, for a couple years. He wasn't a good player at all when he played baseball. He only played for about 8 seasons, I believe. He had a total of 100 runs batted in and 16 home runs over his whole career. But his father also played for the Phillies many years ago, so he had a family connection with the Phillies. He was hired right after his playing career stopped as a young 30-something-year-old guy in the organization as an assistant to a general manager way back when. And he worked his way up. He had 10 years of training in the assistant role with the Phillies. And then when they got rid of their previous GM, a couple GMs ago, Ed Wade, they named Ruben Amaro Jr. as the new GM, which a lot of people were sort of on the fence about, figuring that, he had the family connection and things. But yeah, he did do a good job with the Phillies. He brought some great players to the team, but he signed them for 2 long terms, and he wasn't ready to, deal them after a few years. And that's really what did him in the end. He stayed true to all these players, the Ryan Howard, the Chase Utleys, as they got older and their skills degraded greatly. But in his eyes, these players were still great, and he just couldn't part with them. He waited too late, kept them all together too late, and did not make the team younger, and that was his ultimate downfall with the team.
Yeah, and as you said, with Ryan Howard, he did deal Chase Utley this year. He probably might have been better off dealing him a year or 2 ago. Howard's still there. He did manage to deal Cole Hamels. So, and he probably should have dealt Cliff Lee a couple of years ago too, before he got injured, and they would have had a better position. Plus, they dealt off a lot of the top there's a lot of top Philly prospects playing for other teams now.
Yeah, yeah. He mortgaged all of his farm team way back when he was signing these amazing free agents, and these free agents wanted to come to Philadelphia to play. There was a feeling that it was a dynasty that wouldn't end, but it didn't last very long, a few years, and then everything went downhill quick. In May of 2014, Sporting News ranked Amaro the worst general manager in Major League Baseball, and again, noting his propensity to sign aging veterans who failed to perform at a level commensurate with their salary. Thinking of Ryan Howard again, and I hate to keep bringing him up because he's been doing pretty good for the Phillies in the past couple of games, but he's been in a terrible slump prior to this. And it's just he can't hit left-handed pitching. There's a number of different things about him, but it was back in the day when Amaro really thought that he was on his way to the Hall of Fame, and he rose up brighter than any other star in baseball at the time. But again, the long-term contract, the big, huge dollar amount, and that's what I'm saying in reference to Cespedes. Once they get this huge dollar amount, a lot of players, they don't have anything left to play for.
But don't you think in Howard's case, I really think it was the injuries, and I really think it was that heel injury. Because he was still performing at a pretty good level at that point, and when he injured that heel in what was that, the LCS of I forget what year it was, that really did him in, and he probably would have been better off sitting out longer and letting that thing heal a little bit more.
Yeah. But prior to that injury, a lot of people blame that he wasn't quite the same player after he signed his name on the contract. He sort of degraded from that point, really. But you can't always tell. Every player's different. It's not to say that somebody inks their name to a huge contract and they stop playing for you well, but their incentives to play for you well go way down, knowing that every year that certain amount is going to be on their table. Mm-hmm. That's in my opinion. I mean, that's the way baseball's set up. I think football's set up a little differently, whereas a football team can throw you off after a couple of years. They don't have these guaranteed type deals as much.
They also don't have the same union that the baseball players had, and that's why you see a lot of the guarantees. And they wanted at the bargaining table, and it would be nice if they could go back to the 1 or 2 year contracts like it used to be when we were young. But they're not going to do that, and unfortunately, sometimes you got to do these things, and as I say, a guy like Cespedes, he has just made such a difference to this team that you really have to try to get him and sign him, and you're right, you're going to overpay, you're going to regret it somewhere down the line, but it's sometimes you have to do that. And another thing I would do if I was the Mets, then I would go to David Wright and say, look, you've got this 8-year contract, and you don't know what you're back and everything. Let's do this. Let's cut your salary, or let's extend your contract. But we're going to pay you less money, but over a longer period of time. And, when your playing days are done, you've got a job here. Right. And I think maybe he would go for something like that. And again, if you talk to Cespedes and say, look, the tail end of your contract, when you're older, you'll get less money. You'll get it up front, but you'll get less money. So that gives us money to sign some of these young pitchers and keep them here. Exactly. I think that's what I meant by creativity. So at least if he's 37 and he's still making $15 million a year, it's better than 24 million. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. And with his case, he's been with a couple other teams before, and he's displayed this power that he has with the Mets. But for some reason, those other teams have let him walk, and I wonder what that reason is for sure.
I don't know. I can tell you this: there is nothing. They love him in the clubhouse. There is no issues there. I mean, even Justin Verlander said, he was congratulating him on Twitter and missed you, great teammate, blah blah blah. So I don't know what the issue was. They didn't like him in Boston. Why, I don't know. He's got a little hot dog in him.
Yeah.
But he's been playing center field. He's been playing left field for the Mets, and he's got this thing he does where he whips it in if he catches a fly ball, not with a runner on, but if there's nobody on, he'll catch a fly ball and whip it in underhanded, to the infielder. And I've seen him not run out some things when he's not busting it, but boy, if he gets a hit, he's busting it, and he's quick. Right. And he knows how to play the game. He's excellent defensively. He can run the bases. He knows what he's doing. He's got great instincts, and it's just a lot of that. And I don't know why he's been traded like this, but he is looking for a home. Yes, and I hope the Mets are the lucky recipients.
Open that checkbook. That's
if they're willing to do that. Well, Rich, you talking about long contracts, you got a story about a guy that's got a long contract too, that spent a lot of time in the doctor's office.
Yeah, Mr. Troy Tulowitzki, it was reported today. He was injured. Blue Jays GM Alex Anthopoulos says the team is cautiously optimistic shortstop Troy Tulowitzki will be able to return within a 3 to 4 week time frame after cracking his left shoulder blade in an outfield collision. I believe it happened on Saturday's game against the Yankees. And what a scary sight that was. A terrible injury. And I think they're kind of overly optimistic that they'll get him back in 4 weeks. I wonder if he'll even make a return this year, Gary.
I don't know, Rich, but I saw that collision, and it was kind of weird because he didn't seem to react at first. The center fielder fell down, and then he kind of didn't react, and then he fell down. And I thought, I got to tell you, when I first saw it, I thought he was goofing around. But then because that's the way it looked. If you get a chance, folks, go look at the video of that, and it kind of looked like he was goofing around at first, but then when they said he cracked the shoulder, and I'm thinking, man, how? I mean, I've seen worse collisions. And I saw Carlos Beltran, and I can't remember the guy, the center fielder now. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember. Good center fielder, played for Seattle, Atlanta, the Mets. Anyway, I mean, they hit one time, and they were both out for weeks. I mean, heads were swollen, eyeballs were, looked like they were in a prize fight and stuff.
Yeah.
This just looked like he brushed against the guy, and it's hard to tell from the video. But man, when I heard he cracked it, I'm going to say, what is this guy made out of, glass?
Yeah, and the injury might have happened when he came down on it, hitting the turf.
Exactly.
Yeah, not as much as the collision, but the after effects, as you said. And if I think about it, I'll be able to post a video to our website at MLBThisWeek.com if you want to check out the play on that for yourself.
Yeah, because it's a funny looking fall.
Well, you have some more injury news for us. Another superstar has been injured, and why don't you tell us about that?
Well, Rich, Rangers outfielder Josh Hamilton had a cleanup surgery on his left knee on Friday in Dallas. They could finish him for the season, but the Rangers are not discounting the possibility of Hamilton coming back at least as a pinch hitter, and there's that optimism again, Rich, like Tulowitzki, and he was on the disabled list. Hamilton was from August 15th to September 1st with pain and inflammation in his left knee. He was activated at the beginning of the month, but was limited to pinch hitting. He was 1 for 2 in the role, but the knee never really responded to treatment and in the limited duty. And of course, we covered this story when they acquired Hamilton from the Angels on April 27th, but he was still recovering from shoulder surgery. He was activated on May 25th, missed almost all of June with a strained left hamstring. And Rich, that's he's had some great years mixed in with a lot of injuries.
Yes, he has. Wondering if the Rangers did a good deal there to bring him back to the team. He's starting to show some of that age now, of course, 34 years old. But, yeah, he's had a good career so far, but I'm still on the fence if I'm a Josh Hamilton fan. I'm not really a big fan of his.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I'm not, but he had some good years though, and really is still a threat with the bat. It's just that you would think, some guys, they do get injured a lot early in their career, and it works out, and they're able to play in the tail end or the middle of their career. But he's just had one big career of injuries. I mean, he's missed so much time. I'd hate to even. I don't even know if there's a way to check how much time year-wise he would have. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
if you look the games played, Baseball Reference might have him for 12 years, but he might have 2-3 years just of injury time that he missed. But
yeah, that would be a great website to look at if there is one out there.
Yeah. It's kind of sad because, like you said, he has some talent.
Yes, he does. Well, we want to thank all our listeners for tuning in. You can hear our show at our website, as I was talking about earlier, at MLBThisWeek.com. You can also go over to BaseballTalkRadio.com. Brand new logo design there for our network. Great Mr. Nate Wittick from Las Vegas designed that logo for us. So if you ever need some logo work or graphic artist design, look him up. His name is Nate Wittick, and did a great job with that logo, Gary.
Yeah, he certainly did, Rich. It's really neat, and everybody should check out BaseballTalkRadio.com. And season's coming to an end, so you can still follow your favorite team. There's probably they're there. I know you're always working on getting every team, and sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's easy, but there's a ton of teams there, and I think a lot of the playoff teams are in there, Rich. So
yeah, good
check
number
it out, and you can follow your favorite team on BaseballTalkRadio.com.
Yep, you can also find our podcast here, MLB This Week, over at iTunes, on Podomatic.com. We're over there too, and over at Stitcher Radio. So a lot of great areas to check out this show. You can follow us on Twitter at MLB This Week. And if you want to follow Baseball Talk Radio, it's Baseball Podcast. Just look it right up on Twitter and give us a follow.
And there's no reason not to.
No real good reason not to.
No real good reason.
Well,
and
Gary,
Rick, you got another milestone happen this week in baseball.
Yes, I do. We're kind of going to ignore Mr. A-Rod's milestone, but I will mention it at the end of this story. But Mr. David Ortiz made history. He became the 27th player in Major League Baseball history to reach the number 500 home run club on Saturday night when he launched a 2-2 fastball deep over the right center field seats at Tropicana Field down there in St. Petersburg, Florida, in the fifth inning over Boston's 10-4 win over the Tampa Bay Rays. So another guy joining the 500 home run club, and he's got some good company in that. Gary is joining A-Rod and Alex Pujols. A-Rod's got an incredible 685 home runs, and Albert Pujols still playing, of course, 555. So a nice milestone there into baseball's 500 home run club for Mr. Big Papi.
I'm Big Papi'd out. Yeah, congratulations. I still don't know if he's a Hall of Fame player because he's a designated hitter, and my feelings is DHs do not belong in the Hall of Fame, and that's where he's made all of his money and hit all his home runs, plus the steroid scandal that he manages to slip away from. So the allegations are made, but much like A-Rod, as much as I hate to say it, never failed the drug test. So congratulations.
Yes, indeed. And speaking of A-Rod, he also accomplished a nice milestone earlier this year, reaching 3,000 hits. Just today, I believe he was honored at Yankee Stadium. He got a nice diamond ring from the Yankees with the number 3,000 encrusted on it. A very cool looking ring there. And you got to say what you will about some of these steroid guys, but A-Rod's been making it happen this season.
Yeah, he's been through a big long slump, and now he's didn't play when they played in Atlanta, I think it was, the Yankees. So he seems to have gotten his second win now and has been hitting a little bit better the last few days. Don't like the guy. I don't know what it is, but there's something unlikable about him. He just seems to come off as an unlikable guy. He just seems to come off as slimy and slick and crooked, and I don't know what it is. It's however he exudes himself. I mean, whenever I hear him in an interview and I'm sorry I did steroids, or I'm sorry about this, or I'm sorry. It's just like I'm always thinking he's lying through his teeth.
Yeah, sort of like disingenuous type of.
Exactly.
Not a very a tough exterior, I guess you could say, like somebody that's in a turtle shell, so to speak.
You can listen to some guys and their voice, and they might be lying too, but they're believable. I don't know what it is. He just sounds disingenuous whenever he speaks, Well, I'm glad the team won. I'm like, no. You wanted to get 3 hits and I know he can't help the way he talks or the way he looks and the image, but it's the whole image thing. I don't know. I don't care for the man. And again, congratulations and enjoy your diamond ring. And the Yankees really didn't want to do squat for him, but I think they figured the public relations aspect in the media, they better do something for him. So that's my guess, is that's why they did it.
Yeah, and it is a good milestone regardless. He is a Yankee, so congratulations, A-Rod. And we have another story, a manager on the fence, so to speak, and this one isn't too hard to believe either, Gary.
No, well, Rich, the Detroit Tigers, they're slow fall this year. Of course, they have Dave Dombrowski, his job as team president, general manager. Now the rumors have begun that there could be a managerial change as well. An unconfirmed report last Thursday by WDIV TV's Bernie Smilovitz, citing an unnamed source, claimed that manager Brad Ausmus will be dismissed at the end of the season. No shocking news, as you said. Ausmus told reporters that he has not been informed of his fate and is still operating under new general manager Al Avila's statement that he and his coaching staff would be evaluated at season's end, which is always a kiss of death because, they'll say, we evaluated and figure you should be gone. But the club is not confirmed or commented on this. But as you said, Rich, there's no big surprise here. Once Dombrowski left, now the interesting thing is Dombrowski's in Boston. Could Osmus end up in Boston as their manager with John Farrell out with this cancer? Could they say to him, look, John, you got a lifetime job here as a scout or what? And but get healthy. You may not be healthy by next year. We need to cover our butts for next year. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I would think anything's on the table right now, especially, with that dramatic change in GM at Detroit. They offloaded all their quote-unquote stars just about. They went through a dramatic change there. So, yeah, I wouldn't doubt if Osmus is gone after the end of the year. I kind of was surprised that the Phillies let Ruben Amaro go when they did, to be honest with you. But getting back to that story just for a quick moment, it just so happens that the Cubs, who only come to Philadelphia once a year now, came into town on that same day that Andy McPhail used to be their team president. I think it had some sort of connection with Ruben's demise on that day. So that was another little twist to that story I forgot to bring up.
It's also possible that the season ticket plans are going out for next year, and they want to show that they're doing something so people will renew. It could be a lot of reasons. I don't understand it either. With 20 some odd games left, why you would change now? He's can't really wreck it much more, can he? 20 days, or you're not in the race, so why not just let it play out? But I guess sometimes they want to see who the candidates are and perhaps evaluate it that way. And though, I really believe when they fire these guys, they've got an idea of somebody they want to replace.
Yeah, especially when you look at the Joe Madden type of coaches, managers, when they become available, I thought it was a brilliant move that Chicago went right out. Even though they had hired that one manager for a couple of years, they just said, very sorry, but Joe Madden is our man. I thought that was a brilliant move. Some of these guys that are on the market, you have to go after them, grab them while they're there because they don't last very long.
Yeah, and as you say, Joe Madden was a great move. And kind of a shame because the other guy was doing a pretty good job with the young team. So, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yes, indeed. Well, our next story for you here, Pete Rose back in the news, and we haven't heard that name in quite a while, since probably around the All-Star game, Gary, but he had a bobblehead night the other night, Saturday, I believe it was, at the Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. Reds Public Relations even had a limited number of spots available for exclusive meet and greet with the former Big Red Machine great. Pete Rose was present at his bobblehead day there at Great American Ballpark. So they offered a VIP experience that included the following: guaranteed to get Pete Rose's autograph on the bobblehead, a photo with Pete, and also field level tickets for the September 12th game that honored Pete Rose. Of course, his occasion was the 4,192 hits that he hit over his major league career. So here Pete Rose is getting back into baseball slowly but surely, and I think maybe that's a precursor to the future for him.
It could very well be, and it seems like they are inching their way back in, which is fine.
So the great Pete Rose sort of making a edge back into the ball game. Of course, there's also another giveaway coming up with the Reds. I'm on the Reds page here, Gary, as we're doing a show against your New York Mets when they come to Cincinnati on September 26th rather. This promotion is an all-star game figurine. So they're giving the stuff away out there in Cincinnati.
Well, they got to get them in somehow, Rich. They're certainly not winning a lot of ball games, though. They did do a number this weekend on the Cardinals. They took a couple of games from them and swept the doubleheader, as a matter of fact. So I guess go back to the old Pete Rose. It's always a crowd pleaser.
Yes, indeed. Well, we hope we pleased you, the listener, on this broadcast. And Gary, it was great to be back with you. I know it seemed like a month of Sundays since we did a show, and it's only been 2 weeks.
Certainly has, Rich, and good to be back with you. And this is the pennant race now. Now we're in the home stretch, and this is going to be exciting to see because now you start looking at division races even to see. Even for instance, we're keeping our eyes on the Dodgers because we're a half a game behind them as far as where a potential playoff would be played. As the Cardinals will be the one playing the winner of the wild card game, and then the Mets and the Dodgers would be, if the season ended today, would be squaring off. So. Hoping that the Dodgers lose a couple so the Mets can get the home field advantage. But that's the great part now. You start looking at these races within the races and to see how your team can fare.
Yeah, you start thinking about playoff tickets, and all the fans are getting an added excitement. Nothing like October baseball in the playoffs. So congratulations. It looks like the Mets are going to be back in the playoffs after many years. And, that's a second season, in fact, Gary. So we're going to have a lot of talk about the playoff race as we're nearing the end of the month here on MLB This Week, and I can't wait for it.
It's going to be a good one, Rich.
Yes, it is. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of MLB This Week. Tune in again, and we'll be talking some more great baseball with you.